Okay, so welcome back. So we are in this second segment for this topic on ecosystem. So we'll continue where we left in the previous segment, where we were talking about different like a different component of our ecosystem and different functions of the ecosystem. So we are looking at these four major functions in terms of the energy flow, nutrient cycle, ecological succession, and homeostasis. So we'll look at each one of them in one by one. So if you think about energy flow in the ecosystem, so what happens in, say, we have this source of energy is we all know the source of energy is the solar panel, our sun, isn't it? So from there we all derive energy actually from the solar energy. So sun is providing us heat and also providing the light, which is used to do the photosynthesis, and from photosynthesis you are like you're producing food which goes to the animal and different species, and then finally to humans and all that. So supply of energy and nutrients, they are required to in order to survive. We do need energy, we do need nutrients in order to survive. Sun is the primary source. That's where we are deriving all these stuff. We are getting stuff from the sun. So that's the primary source that we have. Plants, they take energy from the sun. Photosynthesis stores the sun energy in the glucose in the food. Now phototrophs passes some of their energy into consumers through feeding pathways. So that's from the it goes into to the consumers. Energy is also lost as heat along the feeding pathway. So energy we don't transfer. Transfer of energy is not like we actually end up using losing a lot of energy along the feeding pathway. So we have to that efficiency is not very high, as you will see in some examples that we will look at in next few slides. So in terms of marine food chain, as you can see, the sunlight is there. You have sunlight coming in, that is you have this like a sunlight, which is you have different like a phytoplankton and all that. So it is a sequence. So what is we are looking at? It is a sequence of organisms through which nutrients and energy passes from one organisms when as one organism eats the another organism. So we have this one cell life, which is like a magnified picture of those like a phytoplanktons and all that. Then we have shrimp like creatures. So we have the large shark, they will eat like tuna. Tuna will eat these stuff, and these small fish, they eat shrimp like creatures. Then these creatures eat those one cell life, which is the magnified, and they are getting food from all these phytoplanktons and other stuff, which is getting the energy from the sun. So it is, this is your typical marine food chain that you are looking at. So this is how the flow of energy happens in a marine system. Now if you look at in terrestrial food chain, which probably you or I probably is more we are more aware of. So in terms of the terrestrial food chain, if you look at we have plants. So we have the plants getting the soil nutrients and producing different like a food, and that food is eaten by small herbivore mammal, could be the herbivores insects, and these are then ate by large predators or small predators or predatory arthropods. They got eaten by them, and from there it goes to the large predators, can go to again to from the smaller this arthropods and predatory arthropods. From there it can go to small predators. So these are your primary producers. So that's our primary producers. Then we have these primary consumers, then we have the secondary consumers, then we have these tertiary consumers. So but this is how the energy flows into the system. Now we have other organic material, which is the waste products, dead matter, debris, which you see over here, which gets broken down by bacteria and fungi, and they produce like you have this fungi there, you have this bacteria, you have this earthworms and all that, which eats up all this organic matter and other stuff. So that's how the terrestrial food chain works. Now in terms of where the human fits in is that we consume food for like plants. We also consume sometimes actually as a part of our non-veg food, we also consume different types of like a meat, fish and all that. So, that is also we are primary consumers, so we are also a secondary consumer as well. So, that is how things kind of work around in a terrestrial food chain. Now, food web, if you look at it, is a pattern of several interlinked food chains, as you can see over here. So, in terms of food web, you have from like a from the like a primary producers, those like a autotrophs. We have small animals feeding on that, and then from small animals getting eaten up by the bigger animals, from the bigger animals, and these smaller animals are also getting eaten up by these birds and all that. So, if you look at the first trophic level is the primary producer, that is your first trophic level. Then primary consumer is called second trophic level, which is the herbivores. Then you have the carnivores, which is the third trophic level in terms of rats, mice and all that. Then you have fourth trophic level, which is again a carnivore, but in terms of snakes and all that. Then fifth trophic level, which is called quaternary consumers. This is the primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Then we have finally quaternary consumer, which consumes your snake and other other item as a food. So, you have, as you can see, there are different levels, different trophic levels, and based on that different interlinked food chains are there. So, if you look at the another energy like a energy flow, when you look at the energy flow through the food chain, there is Lindeman's law of 10%, which it says that we have a progressive loss of energy in the food chain. So, if you have 10 joules of energy available as food producer, 10 joules available as a food producers, 1 joule of energy available as food in the herbivore. 9, so out of before that, even if 1000 joules of light energy coming in, so 1000 joules of light energy coming in, or 990 joules of energy is lost into the environment, only 10 joules is what is there into, which is helping in terms of production of food. Then out of 10 joules, only 1 joule is available as a food for a herbivore, 9 joules is energy lost to the environment. Now, from 1 joule, 0.1 joule of energy is available as food for a lion, and 0.9 joules is energy lost to the environment. So, at every level we are losing 10%, like we are sorry, we are losing almost, like we are using 90%, we are like able to survive, we are able to conserve only 10%. So, that is cuts of called in terms of energy flow, that is Lindeman's law of 10%. So, here if your producer is 1000 kg in a ecosystem, we need 100 kg kind of mass of herbivores, 10 kg for primary carnivore and 1 kg of top carnivore. If you have this level messed up, then you will have like a problem into the balance of the ecosystem. That is why we say we do not want too much of deforestation. We need the forest, we need some of these animals present to kind of have a balance in our ecosystem. So, that is kind of important. It shows the relative amounts of energy or matter contained within each trophic level in a food chain. So, we have we can look at the pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, or pyramid of energy. We did look at it in the previous one. So, in terms of if you look at the grassland ecosystem or a pond ecosystem in terms of pyramid of numbers, you have again in both these cases you start with like grasses at the end of the phytoplankton, and that is then your grass, hooper, mice, you have smaller fishes, that is your primary consumer. Then the secondary consumer is your bigger fishes, or here in terms of here you have snakes and lizards, and then in terms of tertiary consumers we have the larger fishes, and then you have a hawk there as well. So, it is, as you can see, it shows the relative number of individual organisms at each trophic level, which helps in keeping the balance of any ecosystem. So, if you look at the same thing in terms of pyramid of biomass, this is the total dry mass grams per square meter of the area of all the organisms at each trophic level at a particular time. So, you have grasses at the bottom, that is your producers, the cows, sheep, etc., that is your herbivores, then carnivores is the snakes, frogs and all that. So, that is it in terms of pyramid of the biomass. Now, same thing if we can look at in terms of forest ecosystem and the pond ecosystem. In forest we have this grass and trees, again those are the producers. Then herbivores we have elephant, deers and all that. Carnivores we have the lion, tiger. In the pond ecosystem, phytoplankton is actually smaller quantity. So, those are the producers. Then herbivores is your zooplankton, which is which will kind of come under herbivorous category. Then we have carnivorous, which is the fish and water beetles and all those different type of species present. So, here in the pond ecosystem we kind of see the other way, the phytoplankton is less than the zooplankton, and then the fish, water and beetles kind of is higher, and then these two. Now, in terms of pyramid of energy, rate of energy flow at successive tropic level, higher the tropic level on the pyramid, lower the amount of available energy. So, energy flow is also unidirectional. So, it just kind of goes in one direction, not in both the direction. So, here if you look at we have these producers which is having all these food items which is there. Then this is energy is transferred to these primary consumers. So, they are they get all those energy which is then further we have like a loss of energy from their activity as well, again that 10% rule. Then it goes to secondary consumers, again you will have loss of the energy. Then it goes to the tertiary consumer, then where you kind of look at the top level in terms of the hawk or falcon and all that. So, those are the tertiary consumers. So, there is so rate of energy flow is happening. So, higher the tropic level, lower the amount of available energy, because the amount of energy transferred is much less. So, every time you have 10%, which is all like 90% is not transferred, only 10% is transferred. So, that's kind of reduces the number considerably, and it is also one directional, it does not really come back. So, it is one directional stuff that they are talking about. So, so there is a cyclic movement of chemical elements between organisms and environment, which is also called biogeochemical cycle, because here biology, geology as well as chemistry is involved. So, your chemical elements between organisms and the environment when they interact, that is called biogeochemical cycle. There is of course conservation of mass and conservation of energy is always holds good. So, here we have like a water cycle, carbon cycles and those different kind of cycles. So, you have already seen all these stuff before. So, I do not think I have to spend too much time here. So, you have like a river, from river you have the evaporation, condensation, precipitation, then again rainfall, evapotranspiration, percolation to groundwater, and then again evaporation for our the cycle evaporation in terms of for the exposed water surface. So, this is how this hydrologic cycle keeps on working for water. Carbon cycle, if you look at we have carbon in air, that air carbon in the form of CO2. So, we also exhale CO2 in part of respiration, like many species do that. So, plants they use CO2 to produce food, and that and they also like make wood, they make fossil fuels. So, those that is your carbon kind of usage. Then you also have death of the plants, so CO2 is coming to the atmosphere. Animals respiration, CO2 is coming to the atmosphere. Burning of wood, CO2 is generated. Fossil fuel combustion, CO2 is generated. So, this is entirely how things move in terms of the carbon cycle. So, which is kind of important to understand. Then oxygen cycle, relatively easier. Atmospheric oxygen is present, photosynthesis produces oxygen, and respiration consumes oxygen. So, wherever like we kind of see a meeting point in terms of balance of atmospheric oxygen present. So, that is how we look at in the oxygen cycle. So, in terms of in terms of oxygen cycle, it is pretty straightforward. Photosynthesis uses CO2, produces at like a when it uses CO2 in the form of photosynthesis, and then their byproduct is oxygen. Oxygen gets used up by animals during respiration, and the byproduct is CO2. So, that is how this cycle keeps on moving. Nitrogen cycle, again you have your soil ammonia, you have soil nitrate, you have soil nitrite and nitrate. So, we have atmospheric nitrogen which gets fixation by free living or symbolic microbes, and that microbes they move it to as a soil ammonia. Then we have Nitrosomonas which makes it soil nitrite, then Nitrobacter bacteria will be there which makes it as a soil nitrate. Then wet and dry deposition of certain like waste and other stuff also brings the nitrate in there. Then we need to have uptake in the plants, from the uptake in the plants to the consumers. Then what is the detritus impact, impact on like soil ammonia. Then nitrogen fixation by free living and symbolic microbes is done. Then denitrification, Pseudomonas they kind of do the denitrification as well. So, this is how you have to look at the entire nitrogen cycle part. Sulfur cycle, again sulfate to sulfate we have uptake by plants. So, organic sulfur in plants and animals, when you have decomposition of organic matter, that also produces sulfur. Decomposition raises H2S gas as well. So, you will have H2S gas which can be taken by chemo and photosynthetic bacteria and produces sulfate again. So, decomposition of sulfur in rocks and petroleum, the oxidation reduces makes it SO2, then from SO2 again you can have sulfate there. So, this is your entire sulfur cycle, which most of this you are kind of aware. We have phosphorus cycle as well, where from parental rock we get uninsoluble phosphate, from insoluble phosphate it gets soluble phosphate in the 3- form in soil, which is the orthophosphate. Orthophosphate can be taken up by the plants in the roots, then it goes to the animals. Animals, when they die, it kind of comes back out. Then it also goes in bones and teeth, which can be bacterial decomposed to get the orthophosphate. So, this is the entire kind of phosphorus cycle which happens as well. So, this is these are kind of we wanted to have a very quick overview of the different cycles and all that. Then next we will be talking about ecological succession, which is a change in the community in which new population of organisms gradually replaces the existing one. So, where you see that new generation, new population of organisms are coming in and they are gradually replacing the existing one, brings in kind of newer ideas, newer way of doing things and all that. So, there are two types, which is the primary succession, and the second one is secondary succession. So, we will talk about that part and some more in the next video. So, I think so again these are your supplementary material, which like when I say supplementary material means these are again it's part of the course. It's the same slides which is I'm using in this recording, pretty much the same slides we'll use in the classes as well, but this is, it does not mean that the video is available that you should not attend class. You should not think that way. Video is there just to help you. In case you have network problem, you can watch it at a lower bandwidth later. These are all YouTube links, and then also you can also watch it later as for the refresher, for review, to get ready for exam and all that. Okay, so let's stop here and then we'll start from this point in the next video.